Hello, wonderful mom bosses, and welcome to the Life Unboxed podcast. I am JODIE the mom. And for this Momtrepreneur Life Coffee Chat, I am so excited to have Kelsey on the show from Wife Teacher Mommy. So she is sharing her story of starting out as an accidental momtrepreneur, cobbling together different ideas, substitute teaching, a TPT store, teaching guitar lessons, to now she is hosting the Educate and Rejuvenate Summit for teachers and homeschool parents, which saw 3,000 attendees in its first year. So you are going to be inspired by her story. I love sharing stories of moms who decide to define success on their own terms and break the status quo. So let's get into that interview now. Kelsey, it is great to have you on the show today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Jody. So I am Kelsey Sorenson. I am a mom and a wife to three children, or a wife to three children. Wow, that would not make sense. A wife and a mother to three children. I am a mom and I have three children and I'm married. So there we go. That was interesting.
It keeps it real. We're moms. It's kind of like it's the
I
afternoon.
know, right? It is the afternoon, and it's like such a beautiful spring day, and like out my office, I like hear my kids laughing and playing, and I'm just like, it warms my heart. I love that. But yeah, so I'm a mom, three kids who are 9-year-old boy, 6-year-old girl, 3-year-old boy. And I've been married 11 years. I've been doing Wife Teacher Mommy, my company, for almost 9 years. So it was because my son just turned 9, and it was when he was like 7 months old that I started the company. Okay. So I've been doing that for a while, and yeah, so that's the gist about me.
Okay, so let's talk, because this is all about momtrepreneurs and moms making that shift from kind of the 9 to 5 into doing their own thing. So you started out as a teacher. So I'm assuming at this point you're no longer teaching.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. How long did you teach for before?
Okay, so my story is actually very interesting. So I finished my teaching degree. I taught full year in 3rd grade, but then I had my oldest and I wanted to be able to not work full time when I had my little one. So I came home, but then I was substitute teaching. I was like, I'll do that, because then my sister-in-law was like willing to watch my kids like once a week or so for me to sub. And it was a way for me to like both stay connected to teaching, and then I figured I could get to know different schools and different teachers. Then maybe that would be a good way for me to figure out, like, when he got a bit older, where I would want to try to get a full-time job, making those connections. And then after that, I was subbing, and I'd been teaching too before that. So I knew that it's a big pain for teachers to put together sub plans, right? But now being on the substitute side and seeing some of the plans that were left for me, that was interesting. Or like the lack thereof is more what I'm talking about. Like sometimes it was like, oh, this is supposed to last me a full day, So, and I totally got it because I've been a teacher too. So it's like, okay, now I've seen both sides, and now I'm like, oh man, as a sub, sometimes there's not like quite enough there. So I started a TPT store and started making some sub plans. So it was kind of like, maybe I could make some stuff, I can bring it with me. And then, I'm only working part-time. So if I could make a little bit between subbing, and then I started TPT, and then I was like, and I'm going to do guitar lessons too. I was like, between these 3 things, I want to make $700 a month. That was my goal between the 3 things. Subbing once a week, doing guitar lessons, and TPT, which is a lot. Like, so
Definitely is.
So the guitar lessons didn't last very long. And then TV, that was like a month. And then I'm like, okay, no, we're not doing that. But this is kind of like the messy story. We're trying to figure out being a momtrepreneur, right? I'm like, okay, between these 3 things, I'm going to make $700 a month. Like I had a clear goal. I was like, the reason it was $700 a month is because our mortgage at the time, which is laughable now, our mortgage was like $760 a month. So I was like, I want to basically pay the mortgage. Like that's
right.
what I want.
And that's usually a huge chunk of the budget is the mortgage. Yes.
So if I can do that and I can be home with my kids, then I can like stay home longer, right? Then I don't have to go back to the classroom full time, because I wanted to have more children, which I did, as I said. So I'm like, it might be a while until I can go back full time. So I was trying to do that. And then the sub plans, though, they just kind of took off on TPT. Like, people really liked them. And then people asked for more, or like, when are you going to do this grade level? Like, I started with third because they taught my year in third grade, right? And then I went up to fourth because they did some of my student teaching there, and then fifth, and then I went down to second. And then we ended up going all the way from pre-K through 6, as people just kept requesting that. And that's what I just subbed. That's what I'd done my whole time. Like, in elementary ed, my license was K through 6. Then like I got a scholarship for like coming up with creative ideas and stuff. Like, that was actually my favorite part of it, was like coming up with the ideas. So I'm like, oh, can I actually be the person who comes up with the teaching ideas? And then other people actually like go and teach them? Like, that's actually really cool. I could do that. So my TPT really took off. And so I kept subbing for a while because it was like, well, I want to teach too and everything. But after a certain point, it got to where TPT was doing so well. And I was like, I need to find like babysitting would be better spent on me spending more time on this business than subbing. So eventually I gave up the subbing and went just full time with my TPT store. And by the way, TPT is teachers pay teachers. I don't know if I said that.
You did it, but like, I think because it's a lot of homeschool moms, we're all like, okay, yeah, we know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So my teachers pay teachers store, and that was doing really well. So I just kind of, for a long time, that was my focus, was just making more in my teachers pay teachers store. And sub plans was the big thing at first. And we kind of fleshed those out. So we had 5 sets for every single grade level. Like, that took a few years to like get like just that baseline down. And then we started making monthly themed sub plans. And then after that, we started making just other resources too. And eventually in 2019, when my oldest was going into kindergarten, it was kind of that decision point where like, do we send him to school or do we homeschool? And my husband really wanted us to homeschool. He loved that idea, but I was going to be doing the homeschooling, yes. Right? And I was kind of like, well, can I do that and do my work? And, honestly, for me, a big part I was nervous about was telling my family about homeschooling. I don't know if any of the other homeschool moms relate to this. Like, I was nervous to even tell my parents, I'm going to homeschool my kids, even as a licensed teacher.
I was going to say, even as a teacher,
yes.
That was still okay.
It was still a thing, because it was like, they're going to think I'm like not socializing my kids, or like, those things that like are, we know it's not a big deal, but other people don't. And like, just trying to explain it. And I guess I just didn't completely have my own back yet. And I totally see that now, especially now that I'm certified as a life coach. But back then it was like, but then we did decide to homeschool. We went with that. And technically we have a homeschool charter. Like, our kids get to go to school once a week. It's at a dance studio. It's not like, it's a really fun setup. I love it. Like, we would full on homeschool if we didn't have that, but it's great because they get to go do that. But then we still mostly like, we get to choose our own curriculum and everything. It's really just a nice supplement. Like, they do science and social studies, and then some math and reading too. So
I am a huge fan of enrichment programs. Like,
yeah,
they just help so much with the homeschool week from week to week.
It's nice because they do get that whole, like, it's Wednesdays from 9 to 3. I do love that it's 9 though, and not like 8:20 or something. Like, I love the flexibility we get now as homeschool moms. Like, I'm like, man, it's so different than back when I was teaching, right? Just so much more flexibility. Yeah. But anyway, I feel like I lost my train of thought of where we're at with my story. Oh yeah, so we homeschooled. And then I was like, I'm homeschooling now. How do I start reaching homeschoolers too? I'm like, because, basically my whole audience was teachers. And I'm like, and I still want to support teachers. I love teachers, but I'm now more of a homeschool mom actually myself, Okay. So it was like, how do I start supporting them too? And then I was just trying to think about and figure out a way. And then COVID happened. So then the way came, right? Yeah. And it forcefully came because suddenly nobody needed our sub plans anymore. Nobody. Schools were closed. So you look at our TPT graph and it was like the week before, actually, we had an uptick because it was like, oh, there's a sickness. I might get sick. I should get those. But then as soon as school shut down, like, you look at the sales graphs and boom, like, wow. And I had an employee at this point. My husband was home at this point. It was our family's full-time income. So I was like, I have to figure this out. Like, we got to do something. So we started making home learning packets that both teachers could send home, but also parents could get for their own kids when they felt like, what on earth do I do now? My school isn't giving me enough. I'm worried my kids are behind or whatever. So naturally we started getting a lot of parents into our audience. We ran Facebook ads for these home learning packets. We put them on Jane.com. We put them on Etsy, like places where moms would find them. Like, and the Jane deals, you would not believe, I've made like $4,000 on our first Jane deal of these packets. And Jane doesn't really work anymore. Like we've tried it now, but it was like that moment, like doing those home learning packets right as COVID was happening, like boom, like it was like, okay, so we like figured it out. We were able to pivot and we started getting parents into our audience, which I was like, this is great. I mean, not COVID, it was great, but it was great that I figured out a way to bring the parents in and while still keeping the teachers. That was my thing. I'm like, I don't want the teachers to be like all the teachers we brought into our audience to like, wait, you're all for homeschoolers now? Because no, I feel like what we have to offer with the resources and mindset and, you know, rejuvenation and everything are things that both teachers and homeschoolers need. So it's really just widening. And I feel like we can learn from each other as well. So, yeah.
All right. So let me backtrack just a little bit. So what was the time frame between I'm starting this to I can now say like the TPT is full time. Like what was that time frame? I feel like for momtrepreneurs, especially starting out, like we just need to like know how long we have to stick it out for.
Yeah. Well, my first month of my business, I made exactly $0.
Okay.
And I kept at it. I don't know why. The next month I made $50.
Okay.
The next month I made $75. The next month I think I broke 100 and I was so excited about that. And so I started in October. That was when I made 0. And then, and obviously these numbers are going to be different for everybody. So don't expect yours will be like mine. But like, I think by like May, we hit like 700 and I was like, what in the world is going on? And then June and July dipped because it was summer and people didn't need their sub plans, but August, $3,000. And I was like, what just happened? Like, this is an actual income. And then that was the highest. It went down again because August was like back to school. But that was when I realized, okay, I need to treat this like a business. Like it wasn't full time yet because it wasn't $3,000 every month.
Right.
But I was like, wait, this can make $3,000. And if I can like, you know, keep this up and this could become like an actual like full-time income. This could be my thing. Maybe I don't even have to go back to teaching. Maybe I can have something a bit more flexible. So that was, but it took a while before it got to be like full-time. So when I would say it became like full-time, like all the time was around 20. So again, I started 2014, October 2014. And then it was 2016 that like, when we got our taxes back, I was like, this is like, you know, I made like $60,000. Like I made more than I would have teaching this year. So like 2 years later. And that was when it was in 2017, my husband and I started talking about, he was like, you know, I feel like if we put more into this, we could more than make up for his income. And he wasn't completely loving his career path. It was a great career path and honestly, an amazing company he was working for. And we had amazing benefits like health insurance, all the things. So this was like, is this really a smart thing? Like to even be talking about him leaving his job, but it was getting to the point where I was needing to work a lot more. If I was like, you know, I was trying to build this company into a full-time thing and I was starting to hire people and, you know, like this is a business. I need time to figure this out and to figure out how to hire people and to figure out how to create systems and everything. And I was like, you know, I'm fine with hiring like somebody to help with the kids, but he was not. He was like, no, I want it to be one of us. So we made the decision to him come home that year and we were excited and nervous. And then in the next year, we did make up for his salary. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I know. I tell my husband, I'm like, you can't quit your job. Like you have to just work so that I can build what I want to build. Well, with 6 kids, like we need the benefits.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And yeah, it's interesting because with like marketplace and everything, like I know people who had to like, they like qualified to get a cheaper price, but then the next year they didn't or whatever. And they had to back pay all of that. So it gets a little dicey for sure. And we tried the like health sharing thing, which was okay for a little bit. I'm just sharing this because I wonder if some of your listeners might find this interesting. But then we had not a great experience and it just kind of scared me because it's not real insurance. So like if we actually needed something, Like when I had my third baby, we were on a health share and they didn't pay our bills for over a year. And we just kept getting hounded and hounded for them. They eventually did, but I was like, do we just have to end up paying for this?
Right.
So we did eventually, we switched to Marketplace and paid a whole bunch of money as a tax write-off. But now we found a private insurance. It's a nice in between. So there's my insurance story of
No,
those.
that is good to know because I think that's not always something that we always talk about,
Yeah.
usually because it's a dream. Like I would love my husband to have the ability to like quit his job and we just work together in a business.
Yeah.
But those are some scary considerations that we
Hmm.
don't always like see or we talk about. So that was great. But let me ask you this. So you started your career as a teacher. What was the motivation behind you just saying like, I don't want to work anymore? Was it I'm assuming it was your kids, but I'll let you.
It was my kids. I mean, I pretty much my whole life, like the plan was like, I was going to work when I had young kids. I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that was just what I wanted. It wasn't like, oh, I think it's bad for moms to go to work. I mean, I definitely don't. I mean, now I'm literally the mom who my husband is watching the kids, like while I work most of the day. Like,
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it was just kind of what I was going to do. I'm like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom when I have a baby. And then I need to figure out how to make that work. So it wasn't
Okay.
like I hate teaching or anything like
Right.
that. Because I loved it. I loved working with the kids and everything.
That's good. So starting this business, were you scared? Were you confident? Were you just, or more, was it more like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
For me, it was more, I call myself more of an accidental business owner because I
So
didn't
do I.
really think of it as a business when I started it. I was just like, I was subbing. And then I just had the idea, oh, what if I put stuff on TPT? I wonder if what would happen? I wonder if anybody would buy something. I remember the first month, nobody did. So I think a lot of people would have just been like, oh, it doesn't work, but I was just like, I'm just going to keep doing it. Like it was just an experiment. It wasn't like, oh, I'm building like the word business didn't even cross my mind. It was like, I'm just going to see if I can make some like little bit of money by doing this and a bunch of hodgepodge things together. But then it was when I started seeing the money was coming in. I'm like, okay, this is a business. That's cool. Now what do I do? Now I need to learn how to be a business owner. I took so many courses and yeah, there's a course on there for anything you want to learn, like Facebook ads or email marketing or Instagram. You just kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah, I consider myself an accidental entrepreneur. I do remember the point. I was like, I don't mind working for somebody else, but I just don't like how all that has always worked out. So I'd rather work for myself.
Right.
So what advice would you give a mom who has just that tiny seed of an idea, but they're so unsure of themselves?
If you have an idea, I mean, that is like a lot of people don't even have that. So you're already ahead of the game. So you have an idea. And I would just go with the mindset of, I have this idea. I love it. Let's try it this way and see how it works. And then give it some time. And then if it doesn't, after say like 3 to 6 months, you're not seeing any traction. It's not like, oh, this definitely doesn't work. It's like, okay, something about the exact way, and it's kind of like Russell Brunson says, it's either the hook, the story, or the offer, or, maybe the lack of like people seeing it or whatever. So it's like, is it what I'm offering that's not working? Is it the way I'm offering it? Is the way I'm saying it? Just kind of trying to evaluate, then trying something else. I feel like business is just a story of like trying one thing, doesn't work, try something else. Because even as I've like built a business, we've had a lot of failures. I've had months where, now that I have employees and stuff, it's not all like sunshine and rainbows. I've had months where it's negative that month. Like, oh, that's interesting. What do I do now? It's just like figuring it out and being aware of your numbers, obviously, and figuring that out as you go.
So how many hours do you actually end up working in your business a week?
It varies by season. So right now we are in Educate and Rejuvenate
Yes.
season. So right now, I mean, at least 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Like, because I have interviews upon interviews right now. We have like, if an issue pops up, which seems to happen at least once a week, like usually that adds additional stuff I wasn't planning on and whatnot. But I mean, I would say I generally work full time at this point.
Okay.
I do have employees, but it's like, I get like a system down for something, like it's like the product creation, like all the TPT stuff. I haven't touched that in years because I now have employees who do that. That system is totally fine tuned. Like, I don't do anything with that, but it's like, we add new things. It's like, oh, I want to become a life coach now. I want to do a life coach certification. Okay. That takes a lot of time. Right. And then, oh, I'm going to do this conference. I'm going to write a book or whatever it is I'm going to do. I usually end up finding something else to fill that time just because that's me. So I like it. I mean, could I be working less? Yes. If I weren't trying to also do all the new ideas that come up as like now this visionary CEO.
So do you find it's hard? Like, my husband is kind of my balance where he's like, you need to stop now. Like yesterday, he said, okay, turn the computer off now. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. So where do you fall in? Because I know some people think like working from home, oh, you're in the hammock on the beach, drinking whatever drink, and that's how you work from home. But that's
Yeah.
not, especially when you have a lot of ideas. So where do you kind of fall on that spectrum? Are you the one you have so many ideas, you just have to keep going, or are you able to set boundaries for yourself?
So I always have so many ideas that, my tendencies in the past have been to overwork myself, but that is something I've been working on with setting boundaries, especially as I become a life coach, learning so many more skills to like set an intentional schedule, following through on it. I very intentionally plan my weeks at the beginning of each week. The episode that just aired today on my podcast, Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, it's about how to make an intentional schedule and actually stick to it. That is what I do. It is my saving grace every week. And I make sure I have buffer time for, like I mentioned, those things that you don't know that will come up and everything.
Right.
I really try to stick to it. And then, there are times where it's like, if you hit a wall or whatever, and you need to take a break, like you can do that. You just need to give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah, no, I am on the same page. So let's talk about, you've mentioned it. Let's talk about the Educate and Rejuvenate Summit that is coming up at the end of June, because I am part of
Mhm.
it. There's tons
Yes.
of fantastic speakers. So I want you just give us the pitch for it and tell us all about it.
Okay, so yes, I'm really excited about Educate and Rejuvenate. It is our summer conference that we do for teachers and parents to help you rejuvenate and feel ready for the school year ahead. It's really geared towards those who are either teachers or homeschool parents, because it's a lot about how to teach kids and, different strategies for different subjects. But also we have a lot of mindset component to it. Like I mentioned, I am a certified life coach, and I think that is a big part of resetting your intentions for the next school year. Like if you felt like burned out by homeschooling or teaching, whatever it is that you're doing, kind of, it's a chance to kind of reset and be like, okay, here's what went well last year, going to reflect on what went well. What do we want to improve on the next year? And then from there, you can kind of pick which sessions apply to what it is you're wanting to work on. You can go down we have a teacher track and a parent track this year. So I'm assuming most of your audience will want to go down that parent track, which I'm
Yes.
really excited we did that this year, because last year was super successful. We had over 3,000 attendees, and we had sessions for both parents and teachers, but they weren't like organized that way. And it was definitely a little bit heavier on the teacher side, since I'm a little bit more networked on that side, having done TPT for so long. I'm trying to like get to know more of the homeschool moms who do stuff like this too. So this has been a fun way to do that. So we have this parent track that is like, especially like specifically geared towards the homeschool moms. So you can pick, but you don't have to just pick. You can also pick what ones in the teacher section sound interesting to me too, because like I mentioned earlier in the episode, I feel like we can learn from each other. Like if you're a homeschool
Yes.
parent, yeah, you can learn a lot from teachers. Like you can learn
Mhm.
so much that you can apply to what you're teaching with your children. So there are so many sessions. There are like over 70, like we just got so many applications, and I'm just like, these are all good. I don't want to say no. I don't want to say no to anybody. So so many to choose from that you can. But the great thing is we're going to have it organized, like by like, okay, if you want to learn about reading, go here. If you want to learn about science, go here. If you want to learn about this, so you can find what you need very easily. And with your pass, you get to access and watch as many of them as you want for 10 days with the general admission ticket. And if you want to extend even longer, there's a platinum pass. There's an option to extend to have all the way until the end of the year, and you get early access with that too. And bonus resources from, I think 37 of our presenters have submitted to that. It's like a bundle that's worth hundreds of dollars, like think like over $400 of resources from these presenters. So there's a lot. It's really exciting.
So last year was your first year. Why did you decide to do the Educate and Rejuvenate Summit? What was your motivation for that?
Well, so first off, we launched our membership. It was tied into that at first. So we launched a membership in September of 2021. But part of that, I promised an event. And at the time I called it Wife Teacher Mommy Live. And I had no idea how to run an event or what it was even going to be. I just like, and there's going to be an event this summer. Isn't that cool? Wife Teacher Mommy Live, name to be determined. And then it was like, that was in September. And then it got to January and my business coach, she's like, you should probably start finding speakers for this event. And I was like, yeah, we probably should, huh? So we did. And we just put together last year too. It was such an amazing speaker lineup. And we found some amazing keynotes and got it put together and came up with the name Educate and Rejuvenate, which I just love because I feel like it sums up the event. It's like educate, you get to learn. One is education for yourself. You get to learn all these things and also ways to educate those that you teach, whether they're your children or your students. But also rejuvenate, because it's like you get to come together with other educators. There's the community component in the Facebook group and just rejuvenate together and commiserate. And, we start each day with a workout. Like it's all about you as a whole person. We have the mindset coaching. We have there's live coaching that'll happen during the 27th to 28th, the main event. So you can come with any sort of struggle or problem you've been having, and I will do some coaching. There's another coach who will be doing some coaching. It's going to, Chrissy Nichols. She's amazing. She's one of our other speakers. It's going to be a great time. And there's just a lot that we're offering because I feel like everybody's an expert in their own thing. Like I'm definitely, like I mentioned, I spent a year in the classroom and then I homeschooled and then I subbed. Like I have a lot of a variety of experiences, but I'm not an expert in special education or on all classroom management. I know some things, I know what I've told to help my members, but there are others who spent more time managing a classroom than me.
Right.
So it's we all come together and share what we're an expert in. And that can help lift everybody up. So it's really, really a fun experience. And we did it originally it was going to be just for our members, but we changed it. We're going to, once we started pitching speakers and stuff, I'm like, for one, it's going to be more worth it for them if it's not just for our members. If we get more people in there,
Yes.
and
the business side. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're like, we can actually if we're kind of talking business side, because we're talking to those who want to run a business, this event helps us also get more people into our world and potentially join our membership, because we do mention our membership during the event as well. So last year we had 3,334 attendees and 501 joined our membership.
Nice.
So yeah, we have a pretty great, last year was a pretty great conversion rate. So, honestly, that's a big part of the reason we do it and put in all this work, because obviously if you're going to put in, it's me and multiple team members putting in all this work for this event, you have to get paid somehow. Right.
Right.
So,
yes.
And the event alone, selling the tickets for $19, that doesn't even pay for me and my teams, all the work we're putting in, all the marketing money we're putting in. It's the back end where the money really comes in.
That is awesome. So I'll leave the link in the description below so you guys can grab your seats for that event. And that is June 27th to the 28th. And so the link will be in the description below. So as we wrap up, I like to ask everyone this question is, what is your favorite part of being a mom?
When I saw this on your outline, I'm like, I have to come up with one favorite part.
We can do a little bit more. We could do a couple.
I know. But I feel the big thing is just the relationships that you get to make with these little people who eventually become big people, and just seeing them grow and how proud you get to be of them and seeing how unique they are. And just, I feel it's just a special relationship, a mom and their child that is different than anything else. And even your relationship with each child is different. If you have more than one child. So it's just, it's very special. There's nothing else like it. And just the memories of them and looking back, oh, when you were this little and into now and just seeing how far they've come. It's, I don't know. I would say that if I had to say one thing.
Yeah, I agree. And so where can everyone find you?
So if you're here, you're a podcast listener. So I would love if you hopped over to Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, which is my show. And if you're a homeschooler, I am trying to do more episodes that are geared towards homeschoolers too. So we have some that are homeschool specific. So be sure to check those out. And then a lot of them are just really general, like they'd work if you're a teacher or a homeschool parent as well. So be sure to check that out. I don't talk business over there really. My audience is not like business people. So it's all about like teaching and just your mindset in general.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've enjoyed this conversation so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I guess on all the socials or anywhere else, it's just Wife Teacher Mommy, and my website is wifeteachermommy.com. So very easy to find.
Sounds great.